Welcome, all my precious relations, to the Two-Legged Experience podcast. I'm Dr. Anita Sanchez. Nahua is my tribe, also known as Aztec and Mexican American. I'm so delighted that you are here today. I have an amazing, wonderful guest, sister, elder, auntie, just so incredible. But for those of you who are new, I want to let you know that why we call it two-legged experiences, because for many of us as Indigenous people, we see the world as one hoop of life. And those that are viewing also can see my hands are not up, down, but horizontal, because in this hoop of life, there are two-leggeds, human beings. There are four-leggeds, there are winged, there's creepy crawlers, there's water, and some, all the elements. No one's higher, no one's lower. And so this wisdom is so important for us at this time that I'm just excited that you found your way here. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guest today, who I met a few years ago, and just love every time I get to reconnect with her. So delighted to introduce you to Elder Audri Scott Williams. And she is the first woman to lead a global walk for human rights and environmental justice, leading the Trail of Dreams World Peace Walk over 6 continents from 2005 and 2009. I can just feel that walking when I just read that. Audri is the first African Native American woman to run for Congress in Atlanta, District 2. She has received numerous awards for her service to humanity, including the Presidential Certificate of Merit from President Bill Clinton, the Amelia Boynton Robinson Matriarch of the Voting Rights Movement Legacy Award, HBO Hearing Her Voice, Telling Her Story Award, and the 2008 URI Bose Award to the Trail of Dreams team, awarded in India. She is a licensed minister and spiritual director in the New Thought movement at the Spiritual Enrichment Center in Dothan, Alabama. She holds a master's in liberal arts from Naropa University, creation spirituality, with a concentration in Indigenous science, a BA in criminology from the University of Tampa, with postgraduate studies at Harvard University, University of Maryland, and American University. And her bio goes on, and we will have it on the website. But one of the things is I remember now that she had gone to Naropa. That's in Boulder, Colorado. And I failed to tell you that is where I'm coming to you from. She'll say more about where she's coming from. And Boulder is this beautiful place on the foothills of the Rockies. And it is the first peoples that are here are the Cheyenne, Ute, and Arapaho. And so I'm very grateful to the ancestors. And they are not all gone. They are here. And so much is unfolding. So with that acknowledgement, I would love to have you, Audri, before you go into telling us about your story, to open with a blessing or prayer as we have this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much, Anita. It is an honor to be with you today. And as I'm sitting here, I am feeling the presencing of all of nature, all of life, of the culmination of all of our journeys from the stars to this very place in which we all are planted, where our feet are touching the earth and our heads are in the sky. And in that space, I am grateful for the sacred hoop. I am grateful for this time of prophecy, when our hoop is being rejoined and we are remembering who we are as two-leggeds, not who we are as separate by color or race or where we're from, but understanding that in this sacred hoop, we are all from a place of beginnings, all from a place deep within the earth and as far as the heavens, in the heavens as we can see. We each stand in the presence of our star knowledge, our earth knowledge, and our heart knowledge, our wisdom, our feelings, and our awareness that at this time, we are the ones who are showing up to bring the sacred hoop together, to uplift humanity and Mother Earth, all as one living, thrivable entity. And I am so grateful to be here at this time with you. And so it is. Oh, amen.
Oh, oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Audrey. Well, I'm just still taking that in. It feels so good. I know the viewers are feeling the same thing. Let's start at the beginning.
Mm.
And you tell us about your beginnings, who you are, what you are, any of the some early stories that you want us to know about you.
All right. Well, I have to begin with acknowledging my mother, Natalie Scott Williams, and my dad, James Arthur Williams, and the lineage of my mother and all the grandmothers and grandfathers that come through that lineage, and all the grandmothers and grandfathers who come through my father's lineage. My father was in his family, and I'm the 8th generation for our family that was born, and not so much born in Fayetteville, but that was our home. Uh, and that's Lumbee territory for those of you who are familiar with our native communities. And I was born of several different heritages. The Lumbee, also our West African ancestry and European ancestry that goes all the way up north of the North Islands of Scotland. So I feel that there's an indigenous buildup within me that allows me to access the various branches of myself. So with that being said, I grew up during the civil rights movement, and my parents were very active in the civil rights movement. They lived their lives uh, bringing people in, making sure that we recognize all of our family and that we lived accordingly. So that meant that while in the early civil rights time, that while my parents were active, many weren't active. It wasn't very popular. And so some of the early movements were planned in our backyard, and some of the marches were planned and executed from our backyard. So as a little girl, about 9 years old, observing this one particular march where uh, everyone came back to our house after the march, and all night long there was this fire going, and there was food, and there was celebration, even though people had been beaten pretty bad, some had. But what stuck with me and why I'm starting here is because that planted in me an awareness of the power of love and standing in your truth, and celebration of the outcome. And so even though I didn't understand it all, in fact, my role that night, as I look at it, was to keep everybody laughing, because my parents had a restaurant, and so there was a cookout going on. We depleted all the food. The only thing my dad had left was some boxes of frog legs that he had gotten from New York on one of his journeys. So at the end, I'm running around saying to people, "Do you know what you're eating?" They're thinking it's fried chicken, and I'm going, "It's frog legs." So my job was being that little precocious child, and I think that was part of bringing the laughter in. But I wanted to start there, Anita, because my parents were involved in the civil rights movement. They were involved in AIM. They were involved in many struggles, and they taught and instilled in me that it's all about love, and that we should not, we weren't put here to fight over anything. I guess I could say anything, because all they ever taught me was love, and that totality of love can change and transform everything. So why don't I stop there, because I could go on and on.
Well,
That's
we do want to hear more stories too, because that is powerful. Because in the midst of saying, civil rights and what's going on in the beatings and the deaths and everything, and yet of a people that's what's infused in you, being from different directions, but was infused is that even in the midst of such horror and challenges, there is the capacity, not only individually, but collectively, even bigger, that you could have fun, you could eat together and laugh, and you being your humorous self to lift people's spirits, that we have that ability. And I think about it in the context of now. So I'd love to hear more about how did all of that feed what it is that you are being and doing now. And I know there's many aspects of that, so you can choose wherever you want to go in the context of now as well.
Oh, good. Let me add one piece to that story
Yeah.
of my early beginnings. I um, I was one of those kind of strange children, and I say that in a good way. I think strange isn't necessarily bad. I was born with, I think I came into this world and I was still connected to the world beyond. And so what I mean by that is my mother would come into the room to check on me at night when I was still in a crib. And she said I would pull myself up. It would be like in the midnight, and she'd come in there just to check. And I'd be standing there holding onto the rails in the crib, staring out the window, always staring out, at the stars. And I wanted to bring that piece forward because there's a part of me that never left my star home, or my, how would we say it, my universal home. So there's this memory in me of before. And that's always been a very important part of my life. And my mother understood it. She said she felt that from the time I was conceived. And so her perception of what her role was, and she's a college professor, I mean, like you, and very brilliant woman. But she felt that her role was to not let that get lost as I grew up. So she was very protective of the things that I would share with her. And the grandmothers, I've been talking about the grandmothers since, I was born. And so these are these four old ladies that have, I say, been bossing me around all of my life in spirit. They're like my angels, and they're on a mission, and they're using me as a part of getting that mission expressed. So I wanted to explain that part because I'm a passionate advocate for us remembering our dreams. And when we're working with our children and our grandchildren, the first thing you ask them in the morning after you give them a big hug is, what did you dream? And let them share their dreams, because I think for me, there is this connection to the world beyond, that we are just one expression of who we are here in the physical, but there's so many layers to our existence. So growing up with parents who broke through many glass ceilings and made sure we were with them through that process, I just have such an appreciation for the human beings that we are, for the two-leggeds that we are. And within me, see so much capacity. And I look at today, and I look at, I try not to look at the news as much as I used to. But one of the things that I recognize, and my friend Elder Tom Blue Wolf used to say to me, or still does say to me all the time, we're just having the wrong conversation. We're just stuck in a bad conversation. And as we begin to understand who we really are, we can begin to shift that conversation from one that takes our power away to one that truly plants us in the thrivability, he calls it, of who we are. The thrivability meaning that we are not just these individual beings, we are one with the earth, one with all things. And the greatest offering we can ever make is in honoring of all of the elements and each other. Can you imagine if we were having the right conversation, Anita, and all we did was celebrate each other's presence? And we want to know, what dream did you get? What vision is resonating in you? What is it in you right now that is making that beautiful smile just radiate through the screen? And as we amplify that energy, we begin to look around, and we're real concerned about Mother Earth, because that's our foundation. That's what sustains us. Can you imagine just having the reverence of all that Mother Earth provides?
I know. Oh, I'm sharing in your dream as you're talking for us to have the narrative of a remembering that we are part of Mother Earth, not separate.
Not
And
separate.
that then just the the beauty, the power, the knowing that we're contributing not only to ourselves at this moment for our sustainability, but for our children's children, and all species children, and 7 generations out and more. So that's the smile is as you talk, I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
Yes,
And I
yes.
know people are going to want to hear more about that and about the dreams. And how do you, you're obviously your family asking you that every morning. So you gave us one tool to in a time when people feel hopeless and like the dreams, what dreams? We're just seeing such, no, we need to, it's an energy source, this hope, these dreams. So if you could share more about like, what else are you dreaming? Or what else do you want us to know about that? How to change this narrative, how to be in a different way that's life-giving.
Yeah, I'd like to begin that with just one real simple thing. When we are so immersed in the negative, stop, take a breath, and ask yourself, what am I forgetting? What am I forgetting about me? What am I forgetting about life? What am I forgetting about all the gifts that are surrounding me? Now, that doesn't mean we don't recognize and honor the path of our ancestors and the struggle and all that's going on in the world. I'm a global activist for change. So how do I put all of that into my passion for remembering? And one of the things is first to remember that there's a source energy that feeds everything. That source runs through the earth, it runs through us, it runs through everything, everyone, every being, and that source is active in us and accessible to us all the time. It's not outside. It runs through us just like the plasma, just like the oxygen we breathe. So to remember that, then from that place of remembering, if I see myself in that construct of, or if you will, or if that's my reality, then I'm not looking outside of myself for all the answers. I'm saying, okay, something's inside of me. I need to bring that out, and that will connect me to the people that I'm meant to be a part of, the situations, the opportunities, and capitalize on what I hold. Now, what that means is we've got to know what we're holding inside. What's my gift? Is my gift singing? Is my gift, having my hands in the earth? Is my gift having, touching and embracing with love all of humanity? So when I am aware of that, I reckon, let me just say this too, that to get a full awareness of that, spiritual practices are so important. So I spend a lot of time in my indigenous world. I am from this place and I know this place. So what comes through that space, that place? What were my ancestors dancing for? What made my grandmothers want to capture the dreams and pass them on? What were the tragedies that we sustain and not totally into the loss of it, but what is it that's in us already that we can remember to bring into this place right now to live the truth of who we are? So once we connect with the ceremonies, spiritual practices, we got to remember our ceremonies, engage in ceremonies. Sometimes it might be as simple as sitting on a rock for hours and just allowing. And I know, Anita, you sent me a picture of the eagle on the rock there right outside of your back door. So, taking in those moments, because when we only rely on what's being projected at us through media and bad conversations, we are hopeless. There's no energy of thrivability from that conversation. And so once we are planted in the truth, I say the truth of who we are, then what we can begin to do is listen to those inner voices that are guiding us. Mr. McCool, one of the ancestors that I traveled with, used to always say, follow the path of the ancestors, for the way will be lit. And so once we center and we can gain that knowledge of our ancestral lineage, we begin to connect with that. I honestly believe, and people may say I'm too simplistic, but it's been my life experience. When I walk around the world, I wanted to prove that there was peace, That was my passion. So my partner, my mother in the final stages of Alzheimer's in a wheelchair, we set out on a journey. We shouldn't have made it more than 2 weeks because we had no money, but faith was our currency. Faith in the human spirit, in Mother Earth, and in the ethers, that if we sent out the call, because the call had to come from out there anyway, right? We answered the call. So it wasn't whether I thought we could make it or not. It was just showing up each day. And that's the next step I wanted to say. Once we're grounded in the truth of who we are, we really get that in relationship with all of life. The next step then is recognizing that whatever it is that is called up in us, we don't have to make it happen. We just have to allow. And it's amazing where that allowing energy has led me in my lifetime across 6 continents, many countries, even into remote areas where people would think, oh, you better not go there. We were told, don't go there. It's too dangerous. You know, you don't know what those people are going to do. I never met those people. I
Mm.
only met the sacred hoop.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good. And of course, I know that you have a lot more of the steps and things, but I can't let you leave here without sharing one or two of your high point experiences. And when I say high point, I mean, could be just, it was so difficult, it was so amazing on that journey for years. People don't do that. And
Yeah.
yet I'm talking to someone who has, and I know other people have done that, have walked, and you're walking for peace. So if you could share a high point or two of your experience doing that.
Sure. Wow, there's so many
I
stories.
bet.
I'll tell you one that came right when you were asked the question, and I'll just
Okay.
start. I won't think it. I'll just move
Yes.
it forward. This is a story about trust and the amazing power of our ancestors, and of when you're called to something, everything happens to make sure you're able to achieve it. We walked in teams as we were crossing the country, and so each team would have maybe 10 miles they're doing. We had some teams that did like 15 to 20 miles a day. Karen and I did about 10. And this particular day, we were in Texas, and I think Texas is wider than the whole United States. It seemed like we never get on the other side of
Get
Texas.
through.
But this particular day, we started out on a paved road, but our path led us into the brush on a dirt road. And so as we're walking, maybe about 4 miles into the walk, all of a sudden, a pack of wild dogs come at us. Now we're just
Oh,
two
scary.
women walking, I mean, there's nothing you're going to call on, right? And so they start barking really aggressively, and some of the smaller dogs actually had my pants leg, in their mouth. And I'm like, and I'm saying to Karen, what are we going to do? She says, just don't act afraid. I'm like, yeah, right. But what happened, all of a sudden, this huge pit bull comes, and I just knew. I said, oh my God, I guess this is just it. The pit bull stands between the dogs and us, and you could see the hair on it just kind of stand up, and he takes this muscle stance, right? Like he's the alpha dog, and he barks and growls and stands, and those dogs go back into the brush. So we start walking, and he decides he's going to walk with us.
Oh.
Okay. Then another pack of wild dogs a few miles down does the same thing. And he stands between us and the dogs. And he stayed with us. We dropped everybody off. So we walk, we have a way that you walk and pick up the car. The first one who gets to the car takes it and picks up the next group out, and so forth. He stayed with us until we opened the door to get in the car. Now, you can't
That's
make that
definitely.
up, right? You can't. So
No, that's universe on your behalf. Spirit was with you.
yes.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be able to guess how, even plan for, well, what do we do if we get a group of wild dogs after us? I mean, I think people are in their minds are trying to figure out all this stuff. And some of it is, yes, use my, but also it's the trusting of what I hear in your stories and everything you share so far is trust what's inside and the ancestors and your spiritual practice. And that from that you will find, and the universe will respond. sending you
exactly.
this beautiful pit bull.
Exactly. And then the other story I'll share is a similar kind of story. I'm torn between two stories. Let
You
me
can tell
start.
three. I don't
I
think
can
the
still do.
listeners are going
Okay,
to
all right.
mind.
So we're in Morocco,
Uh-huh.
and we're in Fez, I think, and we have to get to, I can't remember the other city we were going to, but anyway, so we had been there for about 4 days, and we usually stay in little inexpensive local hotels. So we packed all our stuff up. We don't have any money, right? I mean, I told you it's amazing how rich you are when faith is your currency. Anyway, so we go to the train station. We have enough money to get two members of the team to get on the train to go to our next destination. We were in Rabat, we were going to Fez. So they left, and we had made arrangements with a local place there where they would wait until I got there for us to pay. So they're all right. We know they're okay. So we're sitting in the train station. We don't have the money to get our tickets, and we're going, the first train leaves the second. So about the time the last train is coming, I have this sense that I need to go to the internet cafe and check our account. And I did. And someone had deposited enough money to pay for our train tickets and for our hotel. And so I got back, and we hadn't called anybody because who are you going to call, right? So we get back, the last train, we made our way to Fez and everything. And then the last story I wanted to tell was we arrived in Egypt, and someone had made arrangements for someone to meet us at the train station. And when we got off the train with mom, because we have the wheelchair, we have her back, it was quite an ordeal. And
Say,
the train station there is way down low. So you've got to go up 2 or 3 flights of steps to get to the outside. So the gentleman who came to meet us, he's waiting for the luggage people to come to help him get mom upstairs. And finally, he just says, "You know what? Mom can't wait. Mom can't wait." And I said, "Okay." He picks up mom in his arms, carries her up 3 flights of stairs, and he said, "This is my mother too," and made sure we got to the hotel. But guess what? There was a problem exchanging our money, and we're there, and he decided mom has to experience Egypt. He took us all down to the Nubian community, which is the indigenous community
right.
there. He made sure we got to get on a sailboat. One of his friends had a sailboat and sail the Nile and
Oh,
see from that perspective. So I just say that to say, when you're gifted with a vision, to recognize that how it happens isn't your responsibility.
yeah.
The only thing we have to do is say yes. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be those scary, tense moments, as I talked about the dogs, for instance, or other things I could talk about. But it means that the journey, what I was told when I received the vision, the journey was already done. We just had to be the example. We had to be the ones to show the possibility of a journey like this.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, so
Oh, take a breath.
those are a few
I just
stories.
want to take a breath because that's so beautiful. As you're talking, what dropped into me, um, and I just want to share quickly, is that um, my dream has always been about connecting hearts all over the world. And what became clear is that a big way of doing that is amplifying the voices of Indigenous elders. And I share that dream everywhere. Not because I'm expecting, but because it's part of me. That's the message I'm giving. And the fact that we're talking right here, right now, all of a sudden the awareness, as you told your story, how it just shows up, we don't know. This is a Wasabi PR firm who also is committed to the Indigenous voices, who said, we'll put this together. You get these messages out. You just do it. Don't worry about the how it's going to happen. Because I'm like, I don't know how to do podcasts. I don't know how, but that's just it. If we let go of the how and trust, that's
Yes,
how you were talking about, and trust that it may not always be easy, but it's always happens.
yes,
Something
it
happens,
does.
and generally more than you expect. like your mother, like being able to sail the Nile. I know what that's like, and I can see the joy, and I just imagine the joy of mother experiencing that powerful water and all that have been on that water. It's just amazing.
And you know what I want to add too?
Mhm.
Um, People say, oh, it's so great you took your mom. But I really think mom took us. And she was the gatekeeper, the way opener for so many things. I remember we were in an airport, I think in Australia, and they were giving us a hard time about some of the things we had, and customs was just giving us a hard time. And so when the person was standing near my mother, who was giving us a hard time, the customs agent, she reached out and grabbed, now she's nonverbal at this point.
Mhm.
She reaches out and grabs that person's hand and pulls it to her heart and then kisses it
Oh,
and holds it. And the person, you see the person so transformed. Not only did they help us get through customs, they escorted us through the entire airport, got the cab so we could get to where we were going. That energy of our grandmothers and our grandfathers, I say that because so we've lost connection with the power that they can have, even though it may not look like they're present. And that's what I learned with my mother with Alzheimer's. She may not have been able to verbally communicate, but she was always communicating. And when we were in India, in an indigenous community that hadn't seen many Westerners, and this is a story that will always touch my heart. We went, they did a beautiful ceremony where they brought all the members of the surrounding communities together and did a fire ceremony to honor mom and our walk. And so the next morning we had an opportunity to ask questions, and I'll be quick.
oh,
The elder there who was in charge of the ashram, the spiritual leader.
mhm.
So through the interpreter, I asked, I said, you know, we're 2 years into this journey. We still have nearly 2 years to go. Am I endangering my mom on this journey? I mean, am I doing the right thing? And his response was, this is your mother's journey. This is the journey that she
Right.
dreamed of. You're just there to make sure she gets to all the places she's supposed to be. So mom is going to be okay. The rest of you take good care of yourselves. You know, so he recognized in her, her, what she was offering in this journey. And it made me so aware that we have no disposable people in
No.
our society. We only have angels. I mean, I think we're all angels. Sometimes we get a little confused about who we are, and we start having that bad conversation, and that gets into a whole lot. But when we have the opportunity to remember, and you know, people say to me, well, you do so much ceremony. I say, well, my, you know, in anywhere I go, I look for the indigenous community to enter. That's where we want to
Yeah.
land. You know, we enter there. And then
Mhm.
once we honor the indigenous, we honor them, then anything else is okay. Everything else, the doors are open. But we get caught up in this, and I think it's a result of colonialism. We get into this forgetting place, and we think that what we're being told is the truth. But anything that separates is a lie. And it's important to remember that anything that separates is a lie, because every human being, regardless of how gifted they may appear, or how tragic they may appear in whatever is happening to their bodies or their mind, everybody's here for a purpose. And when we can embrace that, then we begin to see not only each other, but everything reflects that. You know, nature, it's all about the relationship. So I just wanted to make sure I said that, Anita.
No, I think that was important. Make sure you said it, because what you see oftentimes in some of the mainstream is that a number of things that you shared was that they're become disposable people. Oh,
Yes.
they're older, you're in the way, which is one of the things I love about being an indigenous. Is like, what do you mean older in the way? It's just, no, more to be honored, more to, whether they can verbally share, just looking and being in the presence, there's this energy. And wouldn't that be wonderful if we cared for everyone in that way. And then when you just shared the last part of it you shared, I think is so critical that for us to, it's ultimately all comes back down to love. But oftentimes people see, oh, people use that 4-letter word, it's just too la. But it's grounded. And that your mother, it was her journey and you got to be along with it. But collectively, the energy, I can just feel the energy that came from that, because everything those people did for you, as particularly your mother, they also received.
Yes.
I could feel that when you're telling the story of the man carrying her, how he could feel his beingness, the strength and power of that, and the love, the commitment, and then taking you different, I mean, all of these stories. It's what I hear you coming through, that I want the listeners to, that maybe in a narrative that's not life-giving, is to really hear you and play this over and over again, because these stories aren't just your stories or your mother's stories. These experiences are our experiences.
Right.
And we can create more of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, it's just so beautiful.
I want to make sure, Anita, that I recognize to the Worldwide Indigenous Science
Yes,
Network
please
and
do.
Apila, Colorado, because much of my early work, and still, but much of my early journey, I would not have had the opportunity to sit at the feet of some of the greatest elders that I mean, just what they offered and how they set me on my journey. So I wanted to honor that part of my life that really has been a foundation for me. And I wanted to share, we talk about practices and how do we build that strong sense of understanding of who we are. One of my experiences that really sealed that for me, you heard me mention Mr. Haile Makua, who was from Hawaii. He's now an ancestor. Had the opportunity to travel quite a bit with him, but my first one-on-one encounter with him at one of our Worldwide Indigenous Science gatherings was he took me up on the crest of the volcano on Big Island. And when I say the crest, I mean literally right there, right? And so he helps me get there and get seated. And then he gives me these like 5 little red berries in my hand. He says, I'll be back in about an hour or so. And I advise you not to move and don't try to get up before I get back. And literally it was because, I probably could kill myself, right?
Yeah.
Now I have no warning that this is what he's going to do. He just wants me. I thought we were just going for a walk. So I'm sitting there, and at first it's very uncomfortable because I'm seeing the steam vents, the steam coming up. I'm looking into the belly of the earth. I'm seeing the red lava. And so I have this period where I'm like, what have I gotten myself into? Watching, though, the inner belly of the earth, the womb of the earth, if you will, it dawned on me, I'm having an opportunity to watch the earth being birthed. What she's spewing out of her is forming the islands of the future. I'm watching the great mother doing her work, and I'm getting to hear the sounds and feel the heat. I'm a part of 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 life right here. And of course, when you're a mother, you're giving birth, you have that. But I got to sit with the mother while she was birthing. And that was so transformative for me, because in that space and in that moment, I knew it wasn't something I read, it wasn't something anyone told me. I knew that we are one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing. I love that. Oh, and what I appreciate about your sharing your experiences is you don't make them all like the end, but also the period where you're going, what have I just done? It's like it's being real with each other.
Yes.
Because, being a whole human being doesn't mean that what I'm sensing sometimes is that people understand that we're spiritual beings. So they go into spiritual and say, I don't have to deal with any of this because that's earthly. I'm not that. And then there's some people who are like earthly, I don't, this spiritual stuff. But as a whole human being, and in your stories, it embodies the fullness of who we are, you know, the spirit and earth and all of that, and dreams of what's still to come, and also looking back, and the ancestors having our back and showing us the way. It's just, they're so full. So I just wanted to give you that kind of, I'm sure you've already heard it from people, but I realized as you're talking too, and maybe the viewers are also, I found myself at different times sitting up higher. And part of it was just feeling the pull. My heart tugged and pulled from the energy of the stories and the wisdom and messages for us. So I just so appreciate all of what you've shared so far. And you're not done. We have other. I also want to highlight World Indigenous Science Network. For those of you who are at the site, two-leggedexperience.com conversations, I just, in the last, I guess it's the last 10 days, I interviewed Apila, Colorado. So you'll be able to hear who Audri is talking about. It's just really powerful. The gifts she brings. And so she's someone we share in our lives too, and forever in gratitude. And also not saying that is just past tense, because I know more and more will unfold together as it's meant to, as we know of each other. I want you to, I have a couple of questions. I want to say what they are. So in case there's something else that hooks to what you're saying right now, I just don't want to lose that. I am going to want to ask you about, you know, if you're seen as such a leader. I mean, I've seen you in global gatherings of United Religions Initiative, World Unity, Unify. I mean, just people from all over the world who are all holding this, the narrative and the actions that go with that narrative of the oneness, of us being part of evolution, life-giving, rather than, you know, the illusion of separateness. So what I want to hear from you, and I know others were like, so you're such a leader. Who is it that you look to that inspires you is one. And then anything else that you want to tell us about what you're doing now, or how people can find you, or any wisdom that you have to share. So one is just who inspires you.
Okay.
And then the other is what it is that you're up to and that you want the wisdom to be shared with us, and how to find you. And I'll repeat those, but I just wanted to know where we're going the last 10 minutes of our conversation.
Okay. Thank you for asking that, because it gives me an opportunity to really give honor to individuals who have been incredible influences in my life. I would say Apila, Dr. Apila Colorado has been a big influence. Just watching her hold the vision for the Worldwide Indigenous Science Network, I mean, going back into the 90s, and honoring that connection that we have, I'll always honor that. And what I've learned from Apila is no matter what it looks like, hold the vision, you know, hold the vision. And that's a great gift, a great gift. I'd like to also recognize Auntie Poi Poi and the Honorable Haile Mukua, who both just journeying with them and just having so many opportunities to be with them, and appreciating not only their wisdom, but their sense of humor. And, you know, no matter where we were, it could be in South Africa, it could be in Hawaii, it could be anywhere. And just all of a sudden, we're all traveling in this little vehicle, and all of a sudden they start singing the songs of the 60s and 70s and 80s. And I'm like, what are you guys? Just like when I came off the volcano, Mr. McCoy's, you know, started saying, "You got the power," you know. I'm like, oh, you guys are crazy, you know. But they taught me that there's a levity, you know, there's a funness. We have to enjoy life, and that was so important. And Then there was Baba Credo Mutwa, who I have a lot of great stories with him, but the funniest one is I'm with him in Kenya, and next thing I know, I'm in Lalibela in Ethiopia. He sends me there to go get a rose. Now, you know, yeah, I have to go find this rose and I have to go to Lalibela, so, and then this other elder says, I'll pay for your ticket, let's go. And I'm like, is this really happening? And that was an incredible part of my life. But I have to say that my mom was probably the most influential because she never settled for me being less than uh, of who I am. That was not an option. And she also protected the sacred in me. And so that was incredible. And then Amelia Boynton Robinson, who is now an ancestor, left me, she passed her torch to me, which was, it was just incredible. She was one of the organizers of Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama, which was the voting rights march where they were beaten so bad. And she was too. She was actually in a coma. But she came back and walked across that bridge until they made it to Montgomery. She was such, and she was always a leader. She died at 104 just a few years ago. But just the moments of being with her, sitting beside her in a wheelchair, and honoring Chief, who was always with her. Um, when we came back in from walking around the world, guess who was there to walk the last few miles with us in her wheelchair? She was supposed to just show up to honor us, but she said, no, Chief, you're taking me all the way. So she walked those last, I think it was 3 or 4 miles with us. So having those kinds of elders and ancestors personally, and I didn't go looking for them. And that's why I hope anybody listening gets this. Open your heart and allow yourself to bring to you what is there for you. And when that happens, it's amazing who shows up as a teacher, as a comforter, as whatever it is that you need, a way shower, and sometimes just getting you straight. I mean, when I first started, I was running away from the direction of the grandmothers for many years in my life. But when I realized I had no choice, and I started to embrace it, I told one of my elders, he was also now an ancestor, I said, I don't think I can do this work because it's making me crazy. And he looks at me and he says, my dear, it takes a mad woman to do this work. So I always dedicate what I do to the mad women out
Here's
there.
to mad women, right?
Yeah.
We need that. We definitely need that. Oh, those are beautiful.
So what was the second question that
The second is the last question is really, what is it that you want us to know now about what you're doing, or some other wisdom, and how can people get a hold of you?
Certainly. And I wanted to make just one quick correction. I was the first Native African American woman in District 2 of Alabama. And I wanted to make sure I said that for the reason that this is Alabama, Mississippi are about considered to be the most racially oppressive communities. And so running wasn't so much about winning, it was about adding my voice, adding my presence. And I think that that's a time that we're all being called forward now. What is it that is innately in you that simply by showing up provides an opportunity for transformation? So I wanted to say that. Oh, and I also must say, my partner, Karen Watson, we've walked together since 1999, has also been, that's a person who never doubts spirit. So if I get into my head, constantly drops me back into my heart. So what was I saying? Where do I go from here? What do I want to I'm in my elderhood now, and it's I'm a grandmother, and as a grandmother, I really want to be able to put together a lot of these stories and experiences as a way, as an offering. I hear people talk about what they think is an impossible situation. And I think one of the things that comes through with our experience of having walked for 17 years in different journeys is that there is no impossible moment. You know, when we think of something as being impossible, that whole idea is part of our limited thinking when we're in our head. Because in our heart, if it's anything that's called forward in us, we have an opportunity to express that, to be that, to manifest that. And when we're in our right mind and in our right conversation, there's nothing that can stop us. So I just really want to leave some footprints behind where others can have, you know, have a little nourishment when they get doubtful or feel that they've forgotten, just something to help them to remember. That's what I think this time is about. I think that we're in a time of great fear and powerlessness as an old structure is crumbling, and the next aspect of our evolution, which is really a return to the old. I believe that we have to look to the old, to the Sankofa, look back to come forward. We have to retrieve all that is good and bring it into this moment, and to begin having conversations about thriving, about living and loving, about you know, the wholeness, about protecting each other, protecting the earth, nurturing and loving all of life with no exceptions. And so that's where I'll spend the rest of my life, settled into that space and in that place. And I know that however, you know, whatever's to show up will show up, and allow that full expression to come forward.
Mm. You say that with such confidence and love, that I'm sure the viewers are filled with that. And I know me personally sending love and light to that as well. And I also know I would be in deep, deep trouble if I didn't ask you, how do people find more about you or find you, or to give us that? And we'll be sure whatever you say, we'll make sure to put it on the written thing as well. But we definitely want to know how we can find you, Audri.
Certainly. I have a website, and it's my name, audriscottwilliams.com. Audri is Audri. And they can always contact me through my email, which again is my name at Gmail. So audriscottwilliams@gmail. And I'm on Facebook. Now Time Williams Audri, I think is how it is. But if you just put in my name, it'll come up. And I think those are the three best sources to reach me. And I'd love to hear from you and continue to grow together.
Yes. Well, I just thank you. And on behalf of everybody watching and listening, because you've, in this very short time together, you've had us laughing, you've had my heart just breaking, and fear, and then opening up, and always though moving forward, but being held by the ancestors, by nature, by spirit, by our own sacredness. And so for that, forever grateful. And I look forward to the next time we get to have a conversation. And so thank you. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, Grandmother Audri, sister, auntie, all of these things, friends. And to all of you who are listening, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again. And yes, with that, just aho. And so it is.
Thank you.